Marriage life is one of the things being looked up upon by every young couple. How important is a wedding compared to marriage and dowry? Is it a necessary step to go through a wedding? What exactly are you supposed to prepare for between a wedding and marriage? Stay tuned as we learn more on today's topic on the Marriage Classroom.
Yes, good evening again. Good evening. Yes, we are glad that we are back to the class. We were handling a topic, dowry, wedding, marriage, which we concluded halfway, or we were not able to conclude completely, and we are moving on. So just like though in class, mnasikianga double lesson. So if you had a break, then you come back and continue with the lesson. In the same is because we realized that there were quite a number of things that we had not finished, and we will move on, and our viewers, now that you've joined us again, continue learning together with us where we stopped last week. And so we are looking at the wedding and some of the issues that surround the wedding and what young people are usually concerned about and ask questions about. And one of the issues that we have mentioned there is, what about the vows? Somebody asking, must you have the vows? You know, they seem to be like you're putting your, you know, what do you call it? Like you're putting a noose around your neck, eh? That's what it sounds like. For poor, for richer, in sickness and health. But as much as we would want to avoid the vows, whichever way, it's only that sometimes when they are written, they look like they are real binding. But I believe that any time we persuade somebody to come and stay with us, we have promises. Mm-hmm. And those promises are also vows, because God is also a witness. You see, if I tell you, I want to marry you and I want a future with you, that is also a promise, because you didn't tell me come and be helping my mother. Isn't it? You tell me, we have a future together. So whether we avoid the issues of vows, unless we are looking for something else other than, you know, a life partner. And that's why marriage is for life. But if it is companionship, sometimes it can be you can accompany somebody for a trip, and that's the end. After the trip is over, go back. But this is not for a trip. It is not one time. It is not for one day. So, and that's why we should think seriously about commitment, so that we don't reach somewhere and say, we were not serious. Or we were just partners. So that is now another issue. So vows or no vows, these days in some churches, they allow you to write up your own vows. Some of them are really beautiful. You listen to them, they are so poetical. But they are still saying the same things, you know? Whatever, it's like, whether it is, I'll have you to have and to hold, you know? That is still vows.
For better, for worse.
And for better, for worse. You know, for rich or for poor. But as much as there is, the vows is not that is what exactly binds people to the marriage. I believe it's the commitment that we have. Sometimes I can't remember our wedding vows. Did we say the vows? But we have promised, or we promised one another many things that we have done that were not even written in that marriage vow. And we will continue keeping it. And sometimes we even sit again and revise some, you know, what we need to do and go ahead. And again, it's like, I'll promise to support you on this. And this is still a vow. So if people are ready for marriage, for the long, what you call the long haul, then I think the issues of vows should not be the issue. It's about keeping our promises. Okay? And that's why marriage is not a contract. Though these days looks like a contract. Because when you have a contract, you're looking for you also have an exit clause, dissolution clause. So that if this contract is over, how do we part ways? So when you are going to marriage and you're looking for an exit clause, or you are having that which we call dissolution, then we are not treating marriage as it was. Till death do us had. Don't enter a bus and immediately you enter the bus, you're asking, where is the emergency door? In case. Now, that means you are not ready to go with the bus up to the destination. Okay? Big or small, the wedding, we have discussed here, or we discussed here. It depends on your pockets and what you have as an ideal marriage. What I mean is, the bigness of a wedding does not mean you're going to have the perfect marriage. Being genuine about what you have, and I like when you discuss and talk about, when we have young people who can be able to sit down and agree, yes, this is the money we have. Can we plan our wedding according to the budget we have? If our parents chip in, yes. If our friends chip in, all right. But if they don't, then let's see what we can do. Indeed, I've seen during this time of Corona, with the restrictions that were there, it helped quite a number. Because when you are restricted for 15 people, I mean, what kuminatano, and even sometimes it went less. But there was that time it was only 15 people. Even when you can't afford much, those 15 people, you had an excuse to say it is mother, father, and the rest. And by the way, sometimes you find Muslim party, even that big bridal party was no longer there. And you realize, and I want to tell you, those families are still, will remain, because they had a commitment. That even during Corona, when it was very risky to get married, they dared to get married. So even there, it was in sickness and also in health, isn't it? And so whether they had a big wedding or not, there was a wedding, and it matters. So I said, anybody wanted to get married with an excuse of a small budget, and you already had found one, the time of Corona was very good. Yeah, okay. Now, about the issue of showing, you realize even during that time of COVID, we didn't have those citizen weddings or any other wedding, the wedding shows and everywhere. But I also want to say this. This issue of showing also has affected young people wondering, must my wedding be in the media? Must it be, or you are competing? You go to a wedding and you want to say, they had this, I am going to have this. We have seen boardroom, what we are calling boardroom weddings, where people just come with their the witnesses and the parents, and they go to the boardroom and they have a wedding. And they go home and they are blessed, and they go and have just lunch somewhere. And that has happened. I remember one time there was a young man who came and he was in church. We had a church service. Then after that we are told we are going to have a wedding. And the lady leaves the church, goes to the pastor's house and wears the gown. And then we come now, the next ceremony we have is a wedding.
After the Sunday service.
After the Sunday service. And I want to tell you, many years after, they are still together. Because what they regarded as a wedding is what they had. And so it's very important to realize it's not about being showy. And realize that this being showy, sometimes we are either competing with one another. And at the end of it, I say, in any competition, once you win, it was a rat race, even after winning, you're still a rat. What happens even as you watch your videos and see the wedding show, then you see another and you wonder, yangu haikuwa kama, you thought you had the best wedding, only to realize somebody had a better one, isn't it? So in that race, when you thought you had won, you were still a rat. So don't compete with anybody. Please work with your budget. And young people, let me tell you, it can be as little as 10,000 and you'll have that wedding.
Actually, there was a wedding in our church done, and the entire cost was 10,000. And 10,000, if you have an input from somebody, somebody is looking at, Stephen is looking at how. It is possible because you only remain with the essentials. If you cross-check, you realize that in the big, because I think she's talking about the big and showy weddings, most of the cost goes into very, how do I say? Non-essentials, yes. Non-essentials. Like, for example, the issue of transport. You go hiring cars that you will maybe never again drive in such kind of cars. Because in the first place, you don't even have a car. And then you are going for a limo that you're being charged 40,000, 50,000 per hour. If you can afford, it is your money, enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with having a showy wedding.
Yeah,
there is nothing wrong with having a big wedding if you can be able to afford it. But if at all you are going to try to squeeze people in a pre-wedding, in whatever, so that they can be able to support you, I think that is where we miss it. And I'm not against pre-weddings, but let it be that pre-wedding is people coming together as friends to support you, not necessarily to try and squeeze. Unakuja huko unasema mtu yeyote ambaye ako na tai shilingi 500 hapa. You know, that is not even good giving. It is trying to manipulate people, and it is not right. The other thing is that you find a cake costing 150,000 shillings. You know, from the way Mwendo is looking at me, is saying that can be the entire budget of my wedding. But it's only a cake. And you find weddings which are ranging into millions of shillings. There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that kind of a wedding. Let's be very clear on that. But only if you can afford it. But if at all you want yours to be like the one you saw in charge, then you are missing it big, because even in your families, you will never be the same as your neighbor.
Yes, and that's why the issue of committees come, where now, what are the committees for? I know of a friend who included us in the committee, but all that she said is this: we don't want you to come and give us money for the wedding. God has helped us to save a little bit of our, the money for our wedding. Why we have called you as a committee is to come and help us plan. Why? I may not be in charge of the vehicles. I may not be in charge of the cake. I need somebody to run or to be in charge of this, because that big day, we may not be involved at all. And so, that's what the committee came to. And sometimes they just realize, wow, how watu wamejitolea sana, and somehow they chipped in. Yet, they had already put their money aside. The money they had, not for that big wedding, but what they could afford. And the committee helped them to plan for that wedding. Maybe why the committee? Somebody is asking, should we have the committees? Sometimes somebody else thought he didn't need a committee until later he realized. And as we are looking at one another, we know who. But later he realized why a committee would come in and help. And later he realized, wow, I wouldn't have done without the committee.
I must defend myself on that. Because what happened is, she was teaching in Moya Boys. That's in Kirinyaga. Her home is in Kiambu. Our home by then was in Laikipia. And I was teaching in Baringo. If we were going to have a committee, where would it be meeting? So for our wedding, we actually never had a committee. We simply called a few friends. I told them we would want to ask you to contribute towards our wedding, and the rest of the arrangement, everything. The same
ones also who assisted in one way or another.
Yes, wherever they were, we asked them, can you be in charge of this? And you know, those are the days of not the mobile phone. It was the days of the telegram and letters. So it wouldn't have been that easy. If at all, for example, there was and with these days with modern technology, you can even actually have a virtual committee meeting.
Yeah.
Some people have done that. But the only problem that I find in committees is where you are calling every Jack, Dick, and Harry, expecting them to come and contribute for you, not knowing that some people come there because they are looking for business. They are coming there to tell you, I can be, or I know somebody who is going to be the service provider for this and that. And all that they are doing is brokerage. You know, they are brokers. So even when you have a committee, I think it is good for them to be members, very close friends, and probably members of the same family. If you open it up to everybody, be sure.
In fact, it's not even a committee. That is usually a fundraising committee. Because when you put 250, a whole a WhatsApp group that it is a committee. They cannot. They can't meet. A committee should not even exceed, it should be at most 15 if it is for planning, okay? But if it is for fundraising, maybe that's where people have issues. You get me into the, and you have not even asked me, I just see somebody added you into the group, and then you realize what was going on. So one of the things you do is, you just shut up there. No, it is nil by mouth. You stay there until the group is dissolved. Because I keep saying, if somebody really knows you and cares about your contribution, should first tell you, this is what I have. Okay? Would you mind if I include you in my group? When you put there, I know you've added me. But don't just get my number and then you put me in that committee. At the end of it, I'll keep quiet there. We meet, I'll talk to you and ask you, why did you include before you asked me? I didn't even know you were planning for this. So this is, and that's why sometimes people are saying their privacy has been violated. So it's important. Talk to people, tell them, I have this idea. Can I include you? Once you include them, they know, you already know they are in.
And I think that's the question that was asked concerning a lecturer who says, don't include me. It is on the basis of, you're including me for what purpose? Simply because I was teaching you? Simply because you're my student? There is no other relationship. There was no other relationship. But if this person is a friend, or maybe because if you at all you have interacted in some way, maybe that time they may allow themselves to be included.
And in case if you need their support, go and talk to them or call them. That is the most courteous way. I know we have issues of calling people. We just SMS. Sometimes it's very important. If you regard a person and you regard their support, kindly call them. It won't cost you so much, okay? Young people, are we understanding? Because I realize that is some of the things even we have to keep asking ourselves. I mean, what was so hard for this young man calling? He knows us. He has our number. That's why he has included. Why wouldn't he just say, Mom, Dad, I would want you to be in my committee. Just put in me there. Sometimes it's like, care enough. A relationship is very important. Because that relationship also may make me even to do much more than what you're asking, okay? Yes. So, the issue of venue, I think, was covered. Whether inside the church or outside, I believe the venue should be where you would find it comfortable. Why sometimes you may find like you have a wedding and your church may be small, or even the compound. As much as you'd want maybe, and you'd want it maybe wherever it is celebrated, also the reception is there because you'd want just to have it once, okay? So sometimes people opt for a garden wedding so that in the same place there will be the reception. So at the end of it, when the issue.
Maybe we can, the first wedding ever was in a garden. So the garden of Eden. When somebody, so whether people go to the garden or not, God is everywhere. And the church minister joining is what makes it a Christian wedding. It's not necessarily the venue. But some people say, I must go to the altar. For me, I think they are raising a geographical location, giving it a higher position than necessarily any other. I agree with them. If that is what they feel, let them do it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing it in that church. But if at all you're going to have a wedding of 200 people, and that wedding of 200 people, they cannot fit because the church can only fit 100, I think if you did it outside the church, would it be less holy? Basically some of those are pragmatic questions. It's just on matters of pragmatism. The
same way with the issue of the dress. I've realized that people who just to make a big deal about a white dress that you can see, even from the appearance, there is no whiteness, isn't it? Okay? The whiteness is where we're talking about the symbolic part of the white dress is that you are pure. But you find even that white dress, it has a big bump here. Now, people even have done weddings, and immediately the lady, instead of going for honeymoon, she's gone for maternity. I mean, she's gone to the labor ward. Now, what is the essence of the white dress, as you call it? So it's not about the whiteness of the gown. It is about the whiteness of the heart. Okay? It's the purity that is in the heart. you know why you're pure. So in this case, as somebody may be asking this question about the wedding, white gown, if you decide on a red one or a pink one, because I've seen people do even with flower. These days is you find kitenges. These days you put a net kitenges. We thought it should be always suits. These days I've seen people putting very African wear when it comes to wedding. So we are not saying that the wedding, for it to be Christian, even a suit does not mean you're Christian. There's nothing Christian about a suit. Okay? Are we together? Yes, we say it must be decent, modest, and appropriate. I think I also want to say this. For a Christian, and you are doing a wedding, however much it is your day for ladies, I find it very immodest and not considerate of the people that come to the wedding when we wear clothes that are very indecent, even during the wedding. Some of them are see-through, or you find one which is bare back up to somewhere here. The whole of that part. I mean, people don't even find it comfortable looking at you. Now remember, as much as we said it is your event, it is a social event. If you have invited your mother, your grandmother, the friends of your parents and all that, then respect them, honor them by the way you dress. Because at the end of it, let me say, you will be addressed the way you dress. Sometimes we take that opportunity just to show our indecency. So you can have something that's comfortable. Si zile zinateremka ndani unakaa ukirudisha, because even as you stay, vitu zinakaa zikitoka. Okay? Are we together? Yes. Yes, I'm talking to everyone. I think indecency, decency is very important, even when it comes to that day. The same way, even the maids, please. Sometimes you find we wear clothes that sometimes you just wonder, I mean, what were you thinking even as you? Some of them are very short. And at the end of it, you realize they are indecent. It may be a good occasion, as you call it, the wedding. But at the end of it, if people would just look at, it is also good to, as Paul would keep telling the Christians, doesn't the culture itself teach you? Look at where you are doing your wedding. Okay? Yes. And
maybe one other thing. A friend of mine on Facebook the other day put up some photos of people who had taken the photos in church and everything. Even the dresses for the ladies seemed to have been very decent. But the way they went to take the photos, and these are maids and everybody, the way they and the groomsmen, the way they were taking those photos, you'd look at them. Let me not describe, but you look at them and you ask, what were they thinking? In fact, for him, he was talking about the issue of indecency, and I think it is good for us to look at everything in its totality. That at the end of it all, my wedding, whatever is done, as a Christian, must be to the glory of God.
Yeah. So that at the end of it, God is honored. And whoever is there realizes this was done to the glory of God. I think we may have some more comments from there. Okay?
On that note, I have a question.
Yeah, true.
You have talked about a white gown to signify purity.
Yes.
So I have had discussions about that before, and I wanted to ask, does it mean that if you choose out of preference not to wear a white gown, although maybe you are pure, does it communicate that you're not pure to the audience or the people who are attending your wedding? Must it be white to signify purity, or you may be pure but out of preference you choose to use a red gown or a pink gown or whatever you want?
I think I had answered in a way, but I will repeat. It's not about the whiteness. What I'm saying, when we talk about something white, let's say like when you're talking about this page like this, we're calling it clean. And I think from the Muzungu, when he brought that black is what is dark and white is something that is pure, we got the idea that a wedding, for you to have a pure wedding, white signifies purity. But I've said that it also has been, abused to the fact that you find even wearing the white is meaningless, to the fact that you find people even who have lived together and or even who have consummated their wedding before, or their marriage before the wedding, they are wearing the gown because it is a sign of purity, what we call first what we would call virginity. Okay, so in this case, even when it's worn, that it loses meaning. But we've said the issue of what to wear during the wedding has a lot of Western culture. Okay, you realize even the suits and the ties and all that. And we say, even right now, when people even do it with the African wear and the rest, that does not make it not a pure wedding. I believe the purity is about the heart. The issue that I've kept myself clean and have honored God with my body and everything until this day. And that's very important. Yes, Mohammed?
Just an addition.
Yes.
I think wedding is one of the avenues, platforms whereby we can evangelize as Christians. Okay. You find that sometimes the way the wedding is carried out, there are questions. The type of music that is being played, the type of food, like the drinks that are being taken, and they leave us questioning, because in a wedding you find all of us, both the Christians and the people of the world. So it's a platform that we need to maximize and win souls to the Lord. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's good. Yes.
Yeah, I think that maybe add on that wedding part, in as much as we consider the budget, we should ensure that at least everyone is catered for. Like, there was a post. Yeah, when you go to a wedding, most people intend that I have to take something little, maybe a cake or some food. There was a cameraman, he took photos, and when he was not given food, he deleted all of them. Yeah. So the committee should ensure that all people are catered for, because he deleted everything, then he had taken on that day.
Especially
for me, I think somebody needs to be taken, because this person, I hope he was supposed to be paid. If he was supposed to be paid, then that is somebody who is operating from, allow me to even say this, a very bad spirit, probably a very vengeful, even very demonic, because if we are being paid and it's only a plate of food, you could even go and buy. By the way, I have attended very many weddings, and especially the ones I have responsibility, I don't even have time to eat that food. That food is eaten by other people, but I'm happy at the end of the day. So it emanates from a very bad negative spirit. But what you're saying is the issue of catering for everybody. If at all you're going to offer food, let that food be catered for in such a way that somebody gets however little. Yeah, however little. But it's not that we also plan that John is picking, so I'm going to eat in the wedding. It is just something to make you be able to sustain you for the day. After all, you will not always be eating in the wedding.
Yeah, but it is sometimes the expectation of many people to get something. Like me, I remember when I was young, there's a wedding I attended. In fact, I had the clothes, the outfit that we had as a group of young children. And we were not given food. I have not forgotten that. The food just was little.
In fact, the best part, the people that you have to feed anytime in a wedding, children.
Yeah, you are not.
And even the cake. My memories of why I would had issues with cows at home was the fact during the time of cutting the cake, that's the time my mother would look for me or look for us and tell us, then we go home and we leave the ceremony, and I would find like I was there in the wedding, but I missed the cake. And I almost never forgot forgave the cows for making me miss the cake. So maybe that's why you have also those memories. That day you didn't find food. I think, because for a grown-up who understand, that's what you'd say, if I don't eat, I'll go home. But for children, they didn't get food. No, okay. So when you make that wedding, even though it is one thing that child eats,
maybe with that, I may need to add just one comment. Please note that your wedding may never satisfy everybody. Not everybody will be totally satisfied. Some of them will find mistakes in the way that even the minister is preaching. Some of them will find a mistake in the way that you came in. You know, there will be, or even food, or maybe what kind of things that you did there. It may not satisfy everybody. But we have said that number one, can it be to the glory of God? And number two, let it be able to satisfy you. If it is satisfying you and you know that I did this to the glory of God, within the budget constraints that I had, then the rest, please forget about it. Yeah, they may remember it forever, but...
maybe the last comment on this, to move on.
Actually, I have a question. Him having raised, like, is it okay for children to participate on the weddings, you know, like having, being in the, you know, isn't it? Yeah, lineups. Thank you. Lineups and all that, because, you know, children don't know the significance. Is it okay to allow children? And I've noticed, because nowadays weddings, they don't even involve children.
Yeah, sometimes during the time of Corona, somehow we had to do with the kids away because they were among the vulnerable groups. And so quite a number of people just had the grown-ups. Again, when it comes to the issues of who to include or not to include in your wedding, you realize it has to be your personal taste. And how many? Because there are people who will include all children of the aunties and everyone, mpaka itaka 50. You find it's like a whole school, and it is others just simply have 4 or 5 or 6. What we are saying is this: when it comes to that part time of your wedding, there is always that you have always desired. If you discuss, you realize you can easily agree on the number, more or less. Okay? So for the children, there are those who always say, lazima nisimamie harusi yako. Huyo mtoto tafadhali, kama alikwambia hivyo. If you don't, then she will always have an issue. So somehow, and because the budget is usually on the parent, unless now there is an issue of where there is travel, let's say like our son's wedding, there were children who wanted, but we realized now the issue of Corona and the travel, we just had grown-ups. Okay? And so sometimes there is that time where situations may dictate, but also it can also be your preference, where if I just said, let me just have a lot. Sometimes you have children who don't even, they have, some of them are so small, 2-year-old, and you wonder, even they have no idea what is going on. So I think sometimes you can spare them, but it's to your discretion. I want to say this, you do it on your own. Let's look at issues of marriage. I know you've not reached here, but we can look at maybe what we regard as, Steve said, or talked about the saying that we should prepare more for the marriage other than the wedding. Maybe why would he say that? Or why is it wisdom or important? Very fast. Yes.
I think because the wedding is just one day, but for marriage you're going to do it until death do you part.
Yes, because marriage is for longer. This is a longer time. It's a process. Well, this is just one day event, okay? This only lasts for at most one day. I think very few are nice. Then the wedding has to wear. I saw another wedding that had to be done the next day because people didn't reach the venue. Anyway, but it can't go beyond a day. So marriage is the beginning of life and it continues. Yes.
Then to ask, what is the importance of the marriage certificate?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, do.
The marriage certificate is a legal document. Legal document in the sense that it's a proof. It's a legal proof that you are actually married to that particular person. And that is why, originally in Kenya, somebody did not have to have the certificate because if it was traditional, the wedding was, or the marriage was traditional, customary. It's called customary. If it was customary marriage, somebody did not have to have the certificate. But right now, from 2017, all marriages, including customary, must be registered. If it is not registered, and you go to a court of law, especially after either of the spouses is deceased, you cannot prove that you are married to that particular person. You can actually prove that you had children, But having children together does not mean that you are married. Sometimes back there was a case whereby a judge ruled that if at all you have stayed with somebody for 6 months and you have been introducing her as your wife, then legally she's your wife. But that has already been overtaken by events. Right now, if anybody is actually married, customarily, and has not registered that marriage, we are not saying you are not married, but in the real sense, in legal terms, you cannot prove that marriage. So it is very important to have the certificate.
And a certificate is just as same as like you have an ID. It's an identity. The issue is this, it is an identity for both of you. Okay? You can't claim you have this and another one has it. So just like though you have today, I may ask you, who are you, Martin? And if I say, no, you are not Martin, how do you prove that you are Martin? You remove your ID and tell me this is. If you say, I'm married to him, and somebody says, no, you are not the wife, how do I prove? It is the marriage certificate. So it's a very important legal document right now when it comes to the issues of even family disputes and all that. You must produce evidence.
And one of the things that I would want to put to you is whether it is officiated by the Registrar of Marriages or by the church or by registered it customarily, what happens is a certificate remains, a copy of the certificate, an original by the way, remains with the office of the Attorney General. That means therefore, even if, like for example, we are married, she was the one who was keeping the certificate, and probably there was acrimony, I could not be able to access it. When I go to a court of law, I will only seek that I get the copy from the Attorney General. And therefore, I will be able to prove the existence of that marriage.
It is these days not about I have children or I have named so and so, this one is named on the other side. It's not about that. It is the issue of has it been registered, and very important. So as much as we'd want to escape the wedding, as people were saying, maybe the viewers are saying the wedding is the only one that you think the certificate, you need even that one of the AG or the Attorney Generals, there must be a certification of that wedding.
Including the customary.
Even the customary.
Even the customary must be registered according to the law.
Yes, Murwa?
Yeah, now in this scenario where you find it's kind of a come we stay marriage, but then the lady has taken the need of changing her ID and include the husband. Now in case of divorce, can this be a legal marriage or is just a thing of such?
Yeah.
I don't think it is possible for you to change your name. Legally, there are only two documents that you can have. Number one, you can have a marriage certificate, and it would be required. Like for example, here she's Dr. Gashoi, and for her, she changed when we were very young in marriage. That also let me a rider. It doesn't mean that if at all you don't change your name as a lady, that you are not married. You know. But the other thing that you can do is do a deed poll. You cannot simply wake up one day and simply go and change your name. It is practically impossible without doing either deed poll or having a supporting document. So that scenario, I don't see how it
is called an affidavit.
Yes, and then the other thing is this: when you do when you what you have called come we stay marriage, please remove the word marriage. It is not a marriage. It is cohabiting. Once you come together and you are living together, and you even have you such children together, even if you stay for 50 years, according to the law, it is simply cohabiting. You are living together, you know.
Maybe you came for convenience, kupunguza rent, kupunguza mahitaji, hata kitada iwe kimoja. You know, the issue is that why buy one bed, another one? So it could have been for economical purposes, but it was not like you had intended to marry, because if you came and stayed, you know, sometimes we call it come and stay marriage, but you are or trial marriage. But any trial marriage should also be.
Any marriage in Kenya that is not registered does not exist as far as the law is concerned. In your heart, you may know that I am married, people around may know that you are married, but if it is not registered, and I'm saying that is according to the Marriage Act. Even if, for example, the Muslims who are allowed to marry up to 4 wives, all the 4 wives must be registered. Those marriages must be registered. If it is not registered, it does not exist in law. Sometimes you had those words, null and void. Yeah, so it does not exist in law.
And that's why you find that people are hurting so much. Some of them asking the question, we have stayed with this man for this and we have even children. But now he has said he's going to marry somebody else. Because the issue is this, when it had never been legalized, that was just what you call cohabiting. And so when he decides or somebody decides to get married now, goes and says, I'm committed to this, then you have no proof. Even these days you realize what used to happen when people wait until somebody is planning to get married. And then you are given those 21 days. If you have an issue to come and stay and or say it or forever remain silent. You know, you make it like you wait, you say, ntagoja that day, the day of the wedding. And then you come there and say, no, I have an objection. We have children. No, it's not about children. Proof that there was, in case somebody asked, do you have a proof that you are married to this man or this lady was married to you? If there is no proof, the wedding will continue. So what we call a marriage is the living after the wedding. Okay, after you have done the wedding, whether at the ages or the church or the traditional, then you start living together, and it is already certified and legalized, as we call it, legalized. Then we are calling it at being a marriage. Otherwise, even as we call them at we are married, you end up at the end of it, somebody may nullify it, say null and void. What's the evidence in there? But the issue is this again, this marriage, we don't stay just because we have a certificate. That's why we have the marriage classrooms continuing for the married, okay? And so when you come there, then we'll be telling you how you are going to live now, not because you're married legally or you have a certificate, so that you don't enjoy your marriage, you enjoy it. Because you can be stuck because you have a paper, but you are no longer together, okay? So I believe that now that we are preparing ourselves for that day and for that life.
A quick question, yes or no?
Yes.
If a honeymoon is significant, can you just go to a wedding then go home and start the marriage?
For young, you know, what we call young lovers who have just started the wedding. I mean, they married. They had not started by coming and staying. Otherwise, I told you there is no surprise. I say, surprise, na ulifungua gift kitabu. Are we together? So, the honeymoon comes after the wedding. Thank you, young people, and our viewers. I believe we are continuing to learn. There is a lot. And thank you for responding to the questions. And I believe that all of us have learned today and much more. Thank you.
Stay tuned for the next lesson of the Marriage Classroom. To get the notes of today's lesson, visit www.mbcimedia.com/TMC. Catch the repeat of the Marriage Classroom every Tuesday at 10 p.m.